as Mr. Tony Wilson is the Chief of the Finance Information Services. He handles all that, is the backbone of the financial information that you get in Umoja, with the legal systems, all that goes on in the Controller's Office is the main person. So, Tony. Yeah.
Good morning, members. Thank you for agreeing to hear my story. I believe the Secretary shared with you an email that came a couple of weeks ago, almost 6 weeks ago, regarding the protection from retaliation policy and the investigations that take place as a result. My particular case is now up to 450 days with no end in sight. I get no indication of when the actual investigation will be completed, and even when it is completed, then it will go back to the Ethics Office and they will then spend another however long time making a determination based upon the evidence that's returned. However, my biggest concern is the actual STSGB itself, which does say in section 8.1 they shall attempt or endeavour or to complete the investigation within 120 days. Now, OIOS indicated in their report, in your report, that it was unrealistic to complete it within 120 days. So all this is doing is actually setting up unrealistic expectations and people for disappointment. And in my own particular case, it's led to a great deal of anxiety and distress. My health has suffered dramatically as a result of this because other actions are consequently taking place. I feel ostracised within my own group of peers, right? It's almost like you're toxic, according to what if you read the JIU report on the whistleblower protection policy that was issued sometime in July, and you feel very alone. And the longer these things go on, the worse it becomes for us, right? So to see things what was written in the report that in paragraph 73 in particular, where they are saying that the drive to strengthen the whistleblower policy, that the bar for retaliation had been set so low there'd been a flood of new cases. I'm not sure if you actually have read the Ethics Office report on retaliation. They've issued it. It's document number A7389. And I refer you to Table 2 on page 15, where the number of actual cases that have been reported has gone up. Okay, so axiomatically there will be an increase in the number of actual cases, even on a percentage basis, that will get referred to OIOS for investigation. Right, so hearing things that it's about the lowering of the bar, it's not. To get actually a recognised protected activity is extremely difficult. Right, because in many cases you almost have to do it yourself. Right, so yes, this is the JIU report. If you would take a look at paragraph 99 of the JIU report, in particular, this refers to the impact on whistleblowers, and this definitely applies to me personally. It says, given that circumstances that lead personnel to report can be associated with extraordinary levels of anxiety, stress and uncertainty, it is essential that timeframes are established that balance such sensitivities with the available capacity of ethics and oversight officers and expected workloads. Right? And in 17, I was one of these cases that was interviewed, one of the 17. And it was noted the actual time to complete prima facie reviews and investigations were unduly long. Just to set the parameters here, I reported misconduct between January and around August of 2016. I applied for protection from retaliation in October of 2016. It took 11 months for the Ethics Office to refer the case to OIOS for investigation, right? And now it's taken 15 months so far, 450 days as of tomorrow, and there's still no investigation completion. right? Now, if we look forward to the future where there's the Secretary-General is looking to reform and increase delegation of authority and accountability, right? Without an effective whistleblower protection policy for people that are in a situation when they have increased delegation or receive delegations from their boss who tell them things that they should do that they think are wrong, without that, excuse me, protection from retaliation working properly, I can't see how people will actually report, because they'll be fearful of retaliation and they're not protected. So that's basically what I wanted to say. There are some videos that I had shared with the Secretary and comments made by OIOS that basically admit they don't reach the criteria for responding in time. But one other point that I'd like to make in closing is their delays and their non-compliance are not administrative decisions, right? So as far as taking action at the tribunal, well, like I went to the tribunal and asked, their delays are, unconscionable, what can I do about it? And they said the cases are not receivable because no administrative decision has been made. So they can take as long as they like with complete impunity, right? And so what I would ask from you is to consider what is contained within the STSGB 2017/2 about the responsibilities of OIS, and rather than allowing them to get away with the excuse of the language is normative and not prescriptive, at least give us some hope that, that they will comply within a particular deadline. If 120 days is too short, and it may be, is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? Right? I see the average investigation, they said on the record it takes about 10 months. But from my experience, it's a lot longer than that. And my colleagues that I know who I've got to know who've been in a similar situation, it's definitely more than a year. So I thank you for your time, and I will happily answer any questions that you may have for me.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson, and we appreciate you coming forward to apprise us of your situation. And, well, it's quite alarming because, I mean, in respect of the number of days that you say your case has taken. You mentioned that no investigation has been made so far after 450 days. Did I get you right?
I was interviewed in May.
Okay.
Okay. The case was referred to OIOS in September of 2017. I was the first person interviewed in May, in May the 9th, and I'm aware...
May of the following year.
Of this year, just passed, 6 months, more than 6 months ago.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and I know I'm aware of other people who've been interviewed, and it's still ongoing.
So there's investigation ongoing.
It is, but,
actually.
I mean,
okay.
When does it ever end? Right.
Yeah, and if I may ask, only if it's okay with you to tell us, because I need to ask this question to have a sense of why it could possibly be taking that long. Of course, I do not want to second guess them, but at least it will probably help me understand what is the nature of the case.
It's with respect to retaliation, with respect to non-selection and sidelining, and also attempts to cut my budget that were taken as a result, that I considered taken as a result of the protected activities that I engaged in.
I see.
So
what was the protected activity?
I can't say.
Okay. Fair.
So that's confidential.
Yeah.
I don't want to even second guess. The responsibility of OIOS is to investigate the circumstances.
Right.
The responsibility of the ethics office is to make the determinations of whether you've engaged in protected activities. Right. So I had reported numerous cases of what I consider to be financial fraud to both the ASG of OHRM and to OIOS. Right. But I'm not allowed to know the outcomes of those.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Excuse me.
We understand that. Would you be aware of any similar case, I mean, in terms of the length of time that it may have taken?
I see the reports, and it seems like the one that was referred to in your report was my case, the one at the 320 days at the time of the report being published. So they say that was the longest. I've spoken to people, and it doesn't seem to be unusual for it to be more than a year. There was a staff survey that was just issued yesterday, outcome from the CCISU, and they indicated that it was a common experience for people that have been in whistleblower situations that the investigations took more than a year.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from colleagues? No questions? No.
okay.
Janet, please.
Yeah, I also want to know about the first 11 months. I mean, and ethics. Can you just talk about that?
Yes.
Were they actively engaging with you? Did they, how about the
Okay.
appropriateness of that period of time from your perspective also?
Okay. I did refer in my email on the 18th of October, which was forwarded to you, the background of the entire situation. I applied for protection on the 27th of October 2016. On the 3rd of May, they made a determination that while I'd engaged in 2 protected activities, they declined to link the detrimental actions taken against me to the protected activities. So they didn't refer it to OIOS at that stage. I appealed it to the alternate chair of the ethics panel, and the alternate chair, in consultation with the full bench, whatever we want to call it, the full panel, overturned the determinations of the ethics office and referred it to OIOS. So between October of 2016 and May of 2017, it was with the ethics office. And then between the 3rd of May and the 25th of September, it was with the alternate chair of the ethics panel, who then overturned the findings of the ethics office, and the ethics office then had to refer the case. And that's actually reflected in that table that I referred to in A7389 on page 15, table 2. There's a subparagraph B, includes one claim where the ethics office did not find a prima facie case of retaliation and was subsequently reversed by the alternate chair. To my knowledge, mine is the only case that has ever met that criteria, at least up until now.
I would want to know what remedies, what ultimate remedies are available to you against any UN entity that appears to be frustrating your case.
In particular, I wanted to bring to the attention the failures in the systems that were... I'm part of many internal control bodies. I'm part of the Headquarters Committee on Contracts, and I'm also a member of the Central Review Bodies. So I review cases for compliance with the rules and regulations. So when they weren't applied in my own cases, I also took cases to the tribunal, which are now 2 years old. I have 8 cases at the UN Dispute Tribunal, all of which are more than 2 years old, with no outcomes. So it's not just this, it's also the judicial process that's associated with this, which is also not complying with what they're supposed to do. Because 2 years of litigation is also not only financially but emotionally draining. So what remedies was I looking for? My only remedy that I ever asked for was the enforcement of accountability. I didn't ask for money. I'm not looking to be reimbursed or compensated monetarily. It was that we supposedly have a accountability framework for actions taken by people that they will be held accountable for. Right? So that was the whole motivation for me doing them. I didn't expect it to turn out like this. Right? It was... We do the leadership dialogues. Are you aware of the leadership dialogues that the Ethics Office give every year? We're in the middle of them. I think, Moses, you're doing yours today. Right? they talk about all of these great policies that have been promulgated and that we should do, report misconduct and be protected and all of these things. When my staff asked me during my leadership dialogue if I found a situation where I found misconduct and what would I do, I said straight up, I would report it, because that's the responsibility of every staff member. And they said, if you personally been in this situation, what would you do? And I said, if I had my time again, I probably wouldn't. Okay? Because it's destroyed me, my health, and probably the standing in my own career with many of the senior executives in the organisation. Because it's not welcome. It's bad news. Right? So, that's what I would say in response to that.
Well, that's what I want to ask precisely. In the future, you will sought twice to report again?
Yeah. I mean, why would I subject myself to this level of trauma for such an extended period of time? And, you know, it's just soul-destroying. It really is. I mean, the thing about feeling like you're ostracized and isolated is probably the worst feeling when you are in this situation. And, you know, it creates medical issues, stress. You know, I've had to be medicated. I wake up in the morning at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning wondering, is today the day? I mean, you can't imagine what that feels like every day, waking up, are they going to give me a response today? Yes.
I have a couple of questions. One is, during this process, you were interviewed in May of 2018. Is there any communication from OIOS in between then? Do they apprise you of the status? Do they ask you additional questions? And my second question is, how did you feel about the interview that you went through? Was it comprehensive, complete, from your perspective? Any other observations you can share about what you've experienced so far in the investigation?
Okay. I kept following up, first of all, wondering when I was going to be interviewed. That was between September and May, and they finally called me to interview on the 9th of May. I kept asking, how's it going, etc. And I got emails back from OIOS saying, it's ongoing, you will be informed in due course. Okay, that's the response that I got. The standard, you'll be informed in due course. And I made the point to Mr. Dudley and Mr. Swanson that if they hadn't got paid, right, and they came to me as Chief of Financial Operations saying, when will I get paid? And I came back with the response, you'll be paid in due course, right? I would be, sent on a performance improvement plan, okay, for lack of client orientation. Right, now, I know they're a separate entity and all that, but as far as I'm concerned, they are a service provider to the ethics office to do investigations. They have a responsibility to me, at least to keep me informed. I would like to at least say, okay, the Secretary General's priority might be sexual exploitation and abuse. That might be true, right? And so they've focused all their resources on achieving turnaround times that meet the Secretary General's needs for sexual exploitation. At least give me a date at which I can expect it, that then I'm not waiting every day. Like I said, waking up is today the day. If they said, okay, look, Mr. Wilson, look, we're busy, we have this many cases in front of you, it's not going to be until December of 2018. And they could tell me that in May. But all this time, they just keep saying, you'll be informed in due course. And to make it even worse, you might be aware of another email that Mr. Moses sent to you. I went to the ethics office and asked them just for that. I said, just give me a date when I can expect it. So I just stopped worrying about it every day. And so they said, we'll ask OIOS for that. And the day after I had convinced them to go to OIOS to do that, I got an email from the ethics officer saying, this is on the 22nd of October, OIOS is committed to provide the outcome of the investigation to us on the 26th of October. So they themselves were the ones that set their own response deadline to be the 26th of October. And I went to the investigation officer to ask him, okay, have you agreed and this is all going to happen on the... He said, this is the first I'm hearing of this. So the management of OIOS committed to the ethics office that by the end of that week, the investigation would be signed off and sent to the ethics office. And I speak to the investigator, and he said, I'm not aware of this. He's still in the middle of the investigation. And he hadn't even, clearly hadn't interviewed several witnesses that I'd asked about because he asked me who they were. And they were actually in the ethics office report. So they hadn't even read the ethics office report to them completely and interviewed all the witnesses. So I found that rather even more demoralising because I'd got my hopes up on the 22nd of October. They set my expectations to be this, and suddenly, you know, it proved to be another, mirage. And since that time, I've heard nothing. So it's another, 2 months since that time, and still no end in sight. So, what was your other question?
Just about, how did you feel about the interview that did happen?
The interview,
back in May?
it seemed to be, there were a whole series of predetermined questions, and it didn't really leave a lot of scope for sort of going into details which might have been peripherally connected. They showed me a lot of things that I had submitted to them or submitted to the ethics office. They said, have you seen this before? Of course, they were emails from me, right? So that seemed to waste a lot of time. So please sign that you've seen this email. Great, it's got my name on it. So they said it was going to be originally an hour. It ended up being close to 3 hours, right? And I wasn't allowed to take notes. I wasn't allowed to record it. And I didn't get a transcript at the end. I would expect to be able to at least get my own testimony in writing if I wanted to. So I found that a little bit strange that you cannot even take notes in your own interview of what you've said.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. And I don't think we have any further questions. We do appreciate your coming over, and we will do our best to address these issues that you have faced. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If the only outcome would be a modification to the SGB saying it's not 120 days, it's something else, that would be an achievement in itself.
Yeah.
So I thank you for your time
Thank you.
and your listening to me. Thank you.